At Guarulhos International Airport, Carlos Silva, a former Marine turned security agent, began his patrol accompanied by his faithful partner, Rex, a German shepherd with a keen sense of smell and precise instincts. Together, they moved through the baggage claim area, a space where Carlos was accustomed to the daily chaos. The constant rumble of suitcases across the floor and the ceaseless flow of passengers. But on this day, something felt off, though he couldn't quite explain what it was. As they neared a more secluded corner near an abandoned carousel, Rex suddenly stiffened, barking at an old, worn-out suitcase. Carlos tried to call Rex away, but the dog held his ground, his barks growing louder and attracting the attention of a few curious onlookers. Feeling his heart begin to race, Carlos realized this was no false alarm. Without hesitation, he signaled for a colleague to call for backup while he tried to calm the agitated animal. Within minutes, a team of police officers arrived and carefully cordoned off the area around the suitcase. Sergeant Oliveira, Carlos's supervisor, gave him a nod of approval. Carlos stepped back, keeping Rex close, as the officers began to cautiously open the bag. When the zipper was pulled, a hush fell over the area. Inside, curled up and trembling, was a little girl no older than 4. Her curly hair was a mess, her face was pale, and her eyes were wide with fear. For a few moments, no one moved. A wave of shock washed over Carlos as he took in the sight of the fragile child, her small hands clutching a worn teddy bear, as if it were her only anchor in the world. In that moment, memories of the daughter he had lost years ago flooded his mind. He knelt down, approaching her gently. "Hey there, little one," he said, his voice soft. The girl blinked, her gaze shifting between Carlos and the other officers, too frightened to respond. A paramedic soon rushed over to assess her condition. Though she was alive, it was clear she had endured an extremely traumatic ordeal. With a heavy heart, Carlos watched as the child was carefully lifted from the suitcase and wrapped in a warm blanket. In an instant, the paramedics took her to the airport's medical unit, leaving him staring at the empty suitcase and the astonished faces of his colleagues, a silent understanding passing between them that this was no ordinary case. A short time later, Sergeant Oliveira approached, placing a comforting hand on Carlos's shoulder. "Let's go to the medical unit," he said. "We need someone she trusts when she wakes up." Grateful for the chance to do more than just file a report, Carlos followed him down the sterile white corridor, his mind racing with questions. How did that child end up there? Who could abandon someone so helpless? And why did he feel such a profound connection to this little girl? At the medical unit, Carlos found the girl lying in a bed, still hugging her teddy bear. She looked so small and vulnerable against the white sheets that he decided to stay by the door, not wanting to disturb her sleep. As he watched over her, a sense of purpose grew within him. In the days following the discovery, news of the girl found in the suitcase spread quickly, causing concern throughout the community and prompting authorities to intensify their investigation. But every lead went cold. There were no missing child reports that matched her description, and no family came forward. To the world, she was a tragic story. But to Carlos, she was a fragile child in need of protection. The police, noticing how she calmed in his presence, asked him to stay close. Without hesitation, Carlos accepted the responsibility of being her temporary guardian, embracing his new role with a quiet seriousness and a flicker of hope. At his apartment, Carlos's routine began to change in unexpected ways. He prepared the guest room, setting up a small bed and arranging a few donated toys. Careful not to overwhelm the girl, He created a welcoming environment. Despite his best efforts, the adjustment was slow. The little girl, now called Leah, spoke very little, and when she did, her voice was barely a whisper. Her memories were vague, limited to fragments of a cold house and orders to remain silent. Leah clung to her teddy bear as if it were her only link to safety, and Carlos, respecting her space, didn't press for more, letting the days settle into a peaceful rhythm. The mornings brought shy smiles when Carlos made a simple breakfast of scrambled eggs and toast, and the afternoons were spent watching the world go by from the window. Occasionally, Leah would point at a passing car or a bird, and he would encourage her curiosity. At night, when she had trouble sleeping, Carlos would stay nearby, offering the silent comfort of his presence. One evening, as he was tidying up, he heard a small voice behind him. Leah, still holding her bear, stood in the doorway, her eyes fixed on the floor. "I had a big house with lots of people," she said softly, a mix of fear and longing in her voice. Carlos felt his heart ache, but he didn't push for more details. Instead, he gently asked if she could tell him more. Though she nodded, her distant gaze left him with even more questions. He treasured the moment as a small sign of progress. As the days passed, Leah began to reveal more small memories, mentioning an authoritarian woman who wouldn't let her speak. Carlos pieced these fragments together, knowing that every detail, no matter how small, could help unravel the girl's past. He passed on what he learned to the authorities, but without concrete evidence, the investigation stalled. In his moments alone, Carlos wrestled with his own memories, the loss of his daughter years ago, and the unexpected bond forming with Leah, a stranger who now filled his heart with an inexplicable sense of responsibility. Each of her smiles, every small victory, felt like a triumph. Though their journey was far from over, he felt that they had both finally found something that was missing: a sense of family. As weeks turned into a month, Carlos grew accustomed to Leah's quiet presence. She began to show signs of trust, offering small smiles, gently taking his hand, and seeming more at ease in his company. But he knew their time could be short. The stalled investigation created a new urgency to uncover her past before any danger could reappear. One rainy afternoon, as they watched droplets trail down the window pane, Leah murmured, "There was a lady who wouldn't let me talk." Her voice was so quiet, it felt like a risk to reveal such a detail. Carlos listened intently, careful not to press too hard. In the following days, she shared more scattered memories of a cold mansion, strict rules, and constant fear. Each fragment was a clue, but the mystery remained incomplete. Determined to find answers, Carlos decided to take matters into his own hands. He spent his nights researching places in Sao Paulo that might match Leah's descriptions. The search was exhausting, and most leads went nowhere. Then, one day, a glimmer of hope appeared. A woman at a nearby shelter recalled rumors about an isolated mansion on the outskirts of the city, known for its excessive control and neglect. With this lead, Carlos drove to the location one evening, parking a short distance from the property. Before him stood an imposing building, surrounded by high walls and shrouded in shadows. He couldn't shake the feeling that this place was connected to Leah's past. He watched it for a while, noting the security cameras and high gates, and wondered if these measures were meant to keep people out or to hide something within. Thinking carefully about his next steps, Carlos didn't want to frighten Leah, but he was running out of options. He spoke with his detective friend, Ricardo, who promised to look into the property records and check for any related complaints. In the meantime, Carlos focused on making Leah feel safe, knowing that every gesture of kindness, every moment of trust she gave him, was a victory. But with her past still a mystery, he knew their peace could be shattered at any moment. One night, as he was tucking her into bed, Leah gripped his hand tightly. Her eyes, full of both hope and fear, met his. "Are you going to stay?" she asked softly. The question caught him off guard, breaking through his defenses. In that instant, he understood just how much this little girl had come to mean to him. "Yes, Leah, I'm going to stay. I promise," he replied, his voice soft, as if speaking to himself as much as to her. As Leah drifted off to sleep, Carlos watched her with a quiet resolve. He knew that whatever shadows from her past might re-emerge, he would be ready to face them. For now, it wasn't just about finding the truth. It was about protecting the family he never imagined he would have.